Here we go, episode 158 of The Hardline. Michael Merlo, John Michael Masiri, here with you as we are getting ready for the divisional round in the NFL. Of course, the coaching hirings. We already have one. We may have a couple of other this week. Some interesting names being thrown around. We're going to talk about all of that as much as we can. I actually want to make fun of a couple people, especially on Twitter. So we'll do that when we talk about the coaches. JM, I'm not going to make fun of you. How are you doing today?
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. I'm doing good. The one coaching hire, real big surprise. Really caught the league by storm there in Mike Vrabel. Already had the introductory press conference and everything like that. I mean, they already were selling, Mike Vrabel T-shirts in the team store probably before they even put the pen on the dotted line. But
it actually is crazy. It is crazy how quick that got done. And you even had a couple of candidates like Aaron Glenn, who's a top candidate everywhere, said, yeah, I'm not going to interview there.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was because of the Rooney Rule thing or if it was just because he kind of knew he had no chance.
I think it's because he knew. He's like, Vrabel's getting that job. I'm good.
Johnson interviewed, but there's some stuff on Ben Johnson, too, we got to talk about. I don't know if you saw something that was surfacing on Twitter the last couple of days.
I actually did not.
Okay.
Good foreshadowing.
I can't wait to show you this. It was sent to me last night. I got to show you this. So we'll talk about that later. A lot on the coaching. We are going to start, though, with the playoffs. And, JM, it is strange that this game ended the way it did because we talked about the Rams-Vikings game as, this was going to be one of the better games of the weekend. I thought, at least. And this was a total thrashing, domination by the Rams in a neutral site game here that ended up having to be moved to Arizona because of the fires.
Yeah, and if I'm a Vikings fan, I mean, you got to feel bad for them at this point because I'm thinking to myself, how do I actually know if my team is legitimately good or not anymore? Like, how am I supposed to know? This year, you win 14 games, you lose to the best team in football twice. Those are 2/3 of your losses are from the best team in football. And you go and play a team who's viewed as inferior to you. It's supposed to be a road game, and it's actually on a neutral site. And you get just beat to a pulp. So you're like, between that and 2022, when they lost to the Giants at home in the wild card round, you're like, what is it with this team?
You know what, though? And we're going to hear this, and that's all we saw the past couple of days, right? All over social media, TV, you're watching, listening, whatever you're doing, right? The Vikings are frauds, and this was a fraud season from the Vikings. I don't think they were frauds. Were they in a tough spot, in a bad matchup against a team that has had postseason experience? Yeah. But were they frauds this season? I can't go as far as saying they were frauds this year. I thought they were a really good team. That was just a terrible matchup.
I think you could very confidently say they were as fraudulent gets, Mike.
I don't know.
Tough matchup. All right, sure. I'll say that it was a tough matchup for them. But frauds means they were not a Super Bowl caliber team or a, top 3 team in the NFC. If you want to be put in any of those categories, maybe you lose that game, but you don't lose it by 20-plus points and do it in the fashion that it was done in. I mean, they didn't have a chance from the first whistle, basically.
How many teams are actually Super Bowl caliber teams in the postseason, though?
Not a lot.
There's not many.
Even a top 3 team in the NFC, a 14-win team, that's the definition of fraudulent. They were not the kind of team that their win total said that they were. Not even close.
So that constitutes them as, because I think the word is kind of being thrown around too loosely because, all right, were they a fraudulent 14-win team? Fine, I could give you that. But were they a fraudulent team overall? Like, they were still a good football team that beat a lot of good teams throughout the year. They played good football most of the season. They lost to 2 teams. They lost to 2 freaking teams.
Hold on. I feel like you're contradicting yourself right now because I'll give you 2 examples. Number one, I'll use the Vikings themselves. When we were talking about the Vikings late in the season, especially after that Packers win, you were all in on the Vikings. And as was I. All in on the Vikings, all in on the Darnold train, everything. If I were to fast forward and come from the future and show you that when we were talking about the Vikings after Week 17, show you that they got killed by the Rams in the wild card round, you wouldn't have told me, oh, wow, so they were frauds all along?
But do you remember what we did? We did this like 3 weeks ago or right before Christmas, I think it was. and you asked, we were talking about the Vikings right before the Packer win, and you said to me, right now it looks like Rams, Vikings in the first round in LA. And you said to me, you said, I know you. I know who you're picking in this game, and it's not the Vikings.
Right.
And I started to laugh a little bit, and I was like, I don't know who I would pick. And in reality, I knew who I would pick. It's who I picked the other night.
Right.
I still don't think even after that Packer game, I would have put them in the bubble of Super Bowl winners.
Not Super Bowl winners.
Teams that could get to the Super Bowl.
Sure,
I guess.
We did put them in that category.
Did we put them in the category of five,
yeah.
the top five? I think everybody could argue. I think everybody could agree. The top five of
We
this.
never discussed the top five when we were bringing in the AFC as well.
But I think we know that what the top five is when we bring in the AFC.
Right. We would probably have them sixth because the Eagles and the Lions
Right.
would be two of them, and then the other three would be Rams, Bills, and Chiefs.
Right. Those are the five. We can agree on the five.
So they'd be right outside.
They would have
the
been
five.
six on that list.
But they'd be top three in their respective conference. They're frauds.
All right, maybe they're frauds.
They're frauds. They're very fraudulent.
Okay,
You love
they're a fraud.
Speaking of-
They're a fraud 14-win team.
You love to rip apart the Ravens. You were talking about it last week, saying that you're not going to trust them. We were doing our playoff predictions, and I had them winning the Super Bowl. You're like, I'm not going to trust them ever again. They're frauds. They choke. This and that. Is what the Vikings did not the same thing? Basically, you get hyped up in the regular season. You say that's a really good team. They play well throughout the year, and then they fall on their face when it comes to playoffs.
I don't want to throw what they did just completely out the window. Like
No, but
was-
that kind of happens when you lose like that.
It does, and it looks like it will. I mean, if
Yeah.
you told me, like if you wrote a script for how poorly the last two games could go for a singular player in Sam Darnold, I mean, it literally went as bad as it can possibly
Right.
go. I mean,
Lost himself years and millions of dollars.
he lost himself essentially that job going forward, most likely. I mean, we talked about it. Like, I would still bring him back for at least another year. He's had that impressive of a year, and I won't walk that back. I won't walk back my belief that in a perfect situation, Darnold can be a really good quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
If he's in this situation for years to come, I still think he could have seasons like this.
Yeah.
But there's no way they could commit to him more than one more season when you have a rookie quarterback that you traded up for in the first round.
It's funny, all these mock drafts that I was seeing and people saying, oh, well, this team trading for J.J. McCarthy is a possibility, and what overall pick would you trade for J.J. McCarthy? Would he be worth a top 5 pick? Would a team actually do that? Now, I feel like, all of a sudden that topic is just going to be dropped after that performance by Sam Darnold on Sunday.
Now the conversation is, where does Sam Darnold land? I mean, what's a good spot for Sam Darnold? That I think is
I'm not sure. But, I'm glad we're bringing up Darnold because, yes, he did play very, very poorly the other day, but all the blame should not go on him. Okay? Because right off the jump, like, that Rams offense got going. The Vikings were trying to play catch up. They sort of their offense never got the chance to get into a rhythm. They kind of threw the run game to the side, got Darnold in obvious passing situations. The Rams took advantage of it. The Rams aren't a high blitzing team at all. They were throwing all sorts of blitz packages at the Vikings, like the same way that the Lions did in Week 18. They exploited the flaws of Darnold. He got sacked 9 times. A lot of those were also his fault because he just holds onto the ball for so freaking long. It's crazy. You're yelling at the TV. You're like, throw the damn ball. But
Did you see the Vikings radio announcer?
I did not. That guy, everybody loves him. He sucks.
He sucks, and he's a nut, but he has a good... It was one sack that was just... I think you can remember it. It was such a bad one towards midfield, and he literally screamed, throw the ball, throw the damn ball, Sam.
The thing I just don't get about announcers like that, like, it is our jobs as the fans to get angry. Like, we receive the information that you give us, and then the emotions that will come out of us will be natural as a reaction to that situation. He doesn't need to add to it. But, are you freaking kidding me? Ever since that Brett Favre call, this is the Super Bowl, man.
It's a cultural, not a cultural. It's a what's the word I'm looking for?
It's a cliche.
No, it's like a state by state thing. It's like a region kind of thing, like the way you're taught and things like that. And like the college announcers are like that too, but that's a little bit more, I think,
homey. People have like the whole college connection, alumni.
You understand that more,
right?
But I'm listening to the Commander one because I actually listened to the last play, the game winning field goal on the radio because I was driving home, and even that one was bad and it was unprofessional. Like I've listened to, Met games on the radio, and Howie Rose gets excited, sure, but he's professional about it.
Right.
It's just a New York, I think, Northeast kind of thing.
I think it's a different kind of place.
It's weird.
I don't like my announcer screaming and yelling on the radio all the time.
Exactly. I don't need that.
Yeah.
But Darnold, I'll tell you 2 good spots for him. I like 2 spots for Darnold if he's going to leave.
Don't rage bait me right now.
No, it's not. No, God, no.
Okay.
If he had a $30 million offer from the Jets on the table and a $20 million offer from somebody else, he should take the $20 million offer. No, I think the Steelers and the Colts make somewhat sense. Colts being a better fit if they were to move on from Richardson.
I'm surprised you didn't mention Cleveland.
That's not a bad spot.
Right? Justify the Travis Hunter pick or Abdul Carter pick a little bit.
If they can get out of the Deshaun Watson contract, then that's a perfect spot.
But I mean, at this point, what is Darnold going to be asking for? I mean, what maybe would he sign another 1-year deal at this point?
I think he gets a Mayfield-like contract.
Okay.
I think it's 3 or 4 years at $35-ish million a year.
Wow. You really think he's going to get that much?
I think you're going to have a select amount of teams that are desperate for a quarterback, and you don't have a good quarterback draft. So it's a perfect year for him to be a free agent.
Okay.
Now, if they tagged him, I'd play under the $40 million tag. Of course I would if I was him. If that's what the Vikings decide to do. I don't think they'll do that.
If I'm a GM around the league and I'm looking for a quarterback and I'm looking at Sam Darnold, I'm thinking to myself, am I getting Baker Mayfield or am I getting Geno Smith? Who am I getting here?
You better have the foundation.
Am I right? You have to have the foundation. Things need to be put into place. But am I getting a guy who really is having a career resurgence, or am I getting a guy who thought we were having a career resurgence, a little bit of a flash in the pan, and now old tendencies are coming back out again?
Like the Colts would be a good spot because the Colts have a couple of receivers there. They can add to that. Solid offensive line, good run game, offensive coach. You're playing in a dome. Easy division. That is a home run spot for
And
them.
after that disaster season that they had, how can you confidently look at your fans and say, we're committed to Richardson next year?
And they're on the hot seat.
No competition whatsoever.
Everybody's on the hot seat.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, he's, from all accounts, a great human being, and he was team captain last season. So you're bringing in a leader into that locker room that, we had heard from Pat McAfee that there were issues in that locker room. So I think that is a perfect spot. Now, I don't know if they do move on from Richardson. But it's interesting. The Rams here, you mentioned it, not even close to all on Darnold this game. I mean, the Rams' defensive line was just continued to get better throughout the season. They're so young, and we saw that on Monday night. That was impressive what they were able to do. Now, we'll talk about it with their upcoming matchup with the Eagles. We're going to break down that matchup coming up in a little bit. This is more just on the Monday night game, but they were impressive in that first half offensively. They obviously didn't need to do much in the second half, but Stafford's still great. I mean, impressive.
Yep, Stafford was phenomenal. That offense got rolling really quickly. It's amazing the way that this offense is as good as it is, and Cooper Kupp is just a complete non-factor. I mean, the guy had 1 catch for 29 yards, and I think it was the third or the fourth quarter when he got that catch. Mm-hmm. So it really is just the Puka show now, and it really just, you talked about the defensive line of the Rams. Right now, we're in such an important moment in the NFL season, obviously because it's the playoffs, but also because of the coaching searches, because head coach is just so important. How can you look at the Los Angeles Rams and not realize that? Sean McVay has been there. This is an organization that, in the middle of for most of the 21st century, especially 2005 and on, was not a good organization.
Terrible.
Right? Went through a move. We remember the Hard Knocks with the Jeff Fisher in those days, and they drafted Jared Goff. And then Sean McVay takes over. Now, all of a sudden, we're talking about a team that has some of the best stability around the league. And Exhibit A is their defensive line. You lose your best player, the best defensive player your organization has ever had, one of the best defensive players in NFL history who is still playing at a high level. He leaves your team, and then you barely feel his absence.
Yeah.
I mean, that is personnel. That is, that's being great GM, great coach. That's just being a stable organization. And even that, a changing offense. Now, Kupp is out the door. Puka comes in. It's really impressive what they're doing.
And they run the ball. They run the ball at a very high clip, and they're very good at it. Yeah. And they draft well. You mentioned it, Snead and McVay. They're I think Snead's a top GM.
Yep.
McVay's the second best coach in the league. The only guy who's behind is Andy Reid. Who else? Who was better? Who was better than McVay?
I would put Harbaugh up there. John.
You can argue it.
I'd put John Harbaugh in there for sure. You're going to get really mad, but you have to put Dan Campbell in there. For what Dan Campbell was told to do, okay, to come into the league, to come to the Lions, a team that was on his first year almost went 0-16 or whatever it was, and he was asked to be a culture builder and change the culture there. And now you're talking about a team that has, the best odds to win the Super Bowl right now within 3 years.
No,
it's a pretty good head coach.
That's fine. He's not Sean McVay. Again, yeah, I'm hard on Campbell. Fine. Pause. Sean McVay has been doing this for a very long time. He's been in Super Bowls. He's won Super Bowls, consistently. I mean, when it looked like this team was going to go through, a rebuild, he was like, I'm going to win with the veteran quarterback that I still have. And the last 2 years, they close game in the wild card round last year against the Lions. Win this one. Now you're in the divisional round. Now I think their season ends in a big way on Sunday, but it's still impressive.
I'm very surprised by this take.
What, McVay, second best coach?
No, by this Eagles are going to kill them.
Oh, we'll talk about it.
At that you're a Rams supporter.
I'm a huge Rams supporter.
But,
by the way, I've actually garnered a reputation now of this.
Yeah, you have.
Of being a Rams.
It's a wide known thing.
Huge. I loved Cup. I loved Puka, fantasy reasons. I like McVay. I like the Rams. I like the jerseys.
Can I throw a little objection out there? We're talking for conversation's sake here. Yeah. No mention of Shanahan for who's better than Sean McVay. McVay's got the ring, but I mean, Shanahan's,
Shanahan has too many losing seasons.
Okay.
McVay, I mean, could go through a rebuild. Looks like you're going through a rebuild. Kind of went through a mini rebuild when the quarterback got hurt.
Right.
Completely retooled the rest of the team, replaced one of the greatest defensive players of all time.
Right.
Bang, you're right back in this thing.
Yeah, I mean, last season, but kind of both seasons, but last season especially, nobody was counting the Rams in for anything. Coming into the year.
They were 0-2, and they were about to lose to a fully healthy 49ers team at home.
Yeah.
And then that was it, and they were off and running.
Yep. I
mean, they looked like they were dead. They were my pick to win the division. I was like, wow, that's going to be another division I got wrong. And
I mean, he's not only extended Matt Stafford's career multiple years, but he's also made Matt Stafford a Hall of Famer. Matt Stafford is going to get into the Hall of Fame.
No doubt Hall of Famer. And now actually, and I wrote this down in my notes, actually a clutch player. He's a clutch player now.
Yep. Guy had the reputation of being an underachiever and a loser his whole career, and now it's completely flipped.
Yeah. You said, remember that comment I made about I need to win a big game?
Yep.
Stafford, and you thought I was legitimately senile?
Right.
I don't know. He plays big games, and he's good in them.
If Matthew Stafford did not get traded to the Rams, I really think that at some point, he's 36 years old, I think that we'd be talking about at this time or maybe next year saying, so Matthew Stafford just retired.
Yeah. He would be like
Matt Ryan.
I was going to say Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan.
He would have literally been a Matt Ryan.
Oh, if I said Matt Ryan a second earlier, we both said it at the same time, it would have been sick.
But he was on that same track. A lot of those quarterbacks, similar. Matt Ryan, Phillip Rivers, they've kind of just had that, okay, you were really good, but unfortunately you never got it done, and you sort of just fizzle out.
Yeah. No, it's a good point. Good for Stafford. Seems like
a nice guy.
All right, Jan, let's move on to what will be the game. I don't even want to say the game of the week, game of the postseason. I don't know yet. I don't know what this game is going to be. But we're going to just quickly mention that the Bills beat the Broncos and the Ravens beat the Steelers in two really boring games, which is basically the identity of what Wild Card Weekend was. Yeah. No more Super Wild Card Weekend. And thank God, because there was nothing super about this weekend besides for one game at night in Tampa Bay. Mm-hmm. I have not much to say. Denver, great season. Really great future. Really like Bo Nix. Defense is good, but yeah, the Bills were the Bills.
Now actually go try to put together a very good football team.
And I'm sure they will with Peyton and the owners they have there. And the Ravens, who the hell wanted to watch the Steelers? Again, I thought there was a chance they could keep it close. They didn't.
No.
I was wrong there.
Another Steelers season, like, it's crazy. You could just duplicate every season over the past, like, 5 years at this point and be like, that's the same thing.
This is the season. This is the off season. You need to figure quarterback out.
Yeah.
And we'll talk more about the Steelers as we get on.
Listen, the whole winning streak or whatever winning season streak that Mike Tomlin has going, it's cute. It's nice. Congratulations. Maybe give it up for a year. Maybe trying to just compete and be scrappy isn't exactly the formula. If you have to take a hit and throw out a more poor quarterback, but a younger guy who's developing, go for it. You don't need to sign a 40-year-old or a 35-year-old or whoever, or a mid-28-year-old and try to compete.
I don't know. I think if you have the roster, and this is obviously going to be a long offseason discussion. I don't know if they have the roster.
But they always have the roster. I mean, we were talking about it with the Rams. Same thing with them. They're a stable organization. Good. They know what they want when they draft players, all that stuff.
If they improve their wide receiver room, improve the offensive line a little bit, and they go out and they sign Sam Darnold, is that a bad thing or a good thing? That's a question mark.
It's a bad thing.
So you want them to draft a quarterback?
Draft a quarterback or trade, if a J.J. McCarthy is available, go get him.
But then you're in the same situation. You're going to draft a quarterback at what, pick 20? You're probably reaching on a guy in a weak quarterback draft, and it's going to be the same crap again, drafting Kenny Pickett. And now
you could draft the right guy, draft a guy that fits your system. I mean, we talked about it last week. A lot of these guys that are the best quarterbacks in the league, they aren't top 10 picks.
No. For such a stable organization that, like you said, just does nothing but win, what a mess.
Yeah.
Because you just can't get that one position right.
Or honestly, commit to Justin Fields.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
At this point, then if you like the kid, commit to him.
I got a weird feeling he's going to be the starting quarterback on my football team next year.
Wow. How you feel about that?
We'll see when it happens. I don't even want to say it right now. The amount of people I've had come to me say, they should just sign Justin Fields. Really? Just sign Justin Fields. Yeah, great. Yeah. Just sign Justin Fields.
He's got a great track record of succeeding.
Jesus. All right. So after we talk about and break down what we believe is going to happen in this Bills-Ravens game, we are going to go through, over the last 10 years, the biggest, the most anticipation we've had for a divisional round matchup, because I think this one is in the top 2 or 3. So we're going to go through that from 2014, 2015 season on to right now, where we looked through everything. I have about 5 or 6 games here that are even comparable to this one. So we're going to do that after we talk about this game. JM, it's the hardest game to handicap all weekend long. I'm going to lean towards my Bills, but it's a tough one. It's a tough one.
It is a tough one. I'm going to lean towards my Ravens.
Your Ravens.
Yeah, I mean, these are two teams that are very similar. We knew that this matchup was just inevitable. As soon as the Ravens overtook the division, we knew that this was going to happen. It's just an extremely exciting game. It's a battle of two quarterbacks who have been compared to each other a lot throughout their careers, drafted in the same year, been playing at a high level in the same conference for a long time now, been the 1 and 2 in the MVP race this year. The storylines are just about what you would want for a playoff game.
I'm sorry, that's the wrong note. It is so perfect because of the pressure we have on both quarterbacks. And maybe I think one head coach, not the other. I don't think Harbaugh. I mean, they have to win, they have to advance, sure. There's no I think pressure. If McDermott lost this game and he made a bad call, I don't think they're going to fire him, but it certainly opens some eyes a little bit, and there's definitely some sort of conversation going into the next season,
right,
if it doesn't end the way they'd like it to. But these quarterbacks, man, I mean, especially Lamar, but both of them, I mean, they need to get – each of these teams needs to slay the dragon, which comes in the next round.
Right.
They need to at least get to a Super Bowl. I mean, the only other guy that's been to a Super Bowl in the last, 6-7 years is Burrow. Mm-hmm. That's a problem.
Yeah, it is a problem. And one of these teams this weekend, obviously, is going to be faced with the shame and the fraud tag and everything like that. And the team that wins is going to have to advance next week and try to face the same issue if they lose to the Chiefs. But you're right. They got to get it done. It's very similar storylines for both teams. They've been competing in the AFC with these quarterbacks for roughly the same amount of time. And both of them have gone up against the Chiefs and not been able to get it done.
Bills more so. The Ravens had that one game last season, right? It was the only time they played in the postseason was in the AFC Championship game in Baltimore. Yeah, I haven't been as excited for a game, and I'll give you that one. As I think the last time I was this excited was when we sat down for the classic Chiefs-Bills game.
Yes.
Like, and I remember sitting down for that game on my couch and was like, this is going to be awesome. And then it was awesome.
It was.
This one.
It was maybe the best playoff game I've ever seen.
Right. And this one, I think with all of the storylines and everything that goes with it, I think I'm going to sit down on the couch that night and say, this is going to be awesome. Like the same way I felt 3 years ago.
Yeah. So that one you have is the best.
That's the one I remember sitting down and saying, oh my God. And we'll start there. So we're going to rank these, the divisional rounds that we have, the divisional round games that we have that we believe are more exciting of a matchup prior to the game than this Bills-Ravens game. I would have 2021 Bills-Chiefs as number one.
In the last decade. 2021 Bills-Chiefs is your number one. Okay. Where do you – just keep going. I want to hear your full list.
So I have –
up until you get to this game.
Okay. We have the other Bills-Chiefs game that was last season. Now, I wasn't as nearly as excited. I mean, the Bills had a weird year. They had kind of they just won the division on the last day, and the Chiefs weren't the Chiefs all season long.
Right.
They started to figure out towards the end, but we still had questions. That one I would not put ahead of this one.
Okay.
Because I think the Bills and the Ravens are playing such great football leading into it. They're both playing great, especially the Ravens. Ravens have been hot since the middle of the season. Colts at Denver, 2014-15. Peyton playing the old team. Luck, the young kid. That one's a possibility.
That's a good shout.
The Dallas-Green Bay game, we know about the Dez catch, but prior, I mean, felt like Dallas had some juice that year. They were the 3 seed.
Yep.
It's two great franchises going against each other. Tony Romo's last year without even knowing. No, the next season was second to last year.
Yep.
So that was a good one as well. Panthers Seahawks 2015-16 I put on here. I don't have it ahead. I have one more ahead of this. So this would be third. Okay, this would be third on my list.
Okay.
Bills Ravens. The other one I have on the list, though, considered the Panthers Seahawks in 15-16. Remember, the Seahawks had so much success during that time. And they were like one of those top teams. And they just snuck in that year. They were the 6th seed. The Panthers, who were eliminated by the Seahawks the season prior, were 15-1. I remember watching this game I think it was a Saturday night. And I remember getting excited for this one, or Sunday afternoon, my bad. I'm thinking of the first one. I remember getting excited, like, rematch, let's go. I think the Seahawks can do this because of the pedigree.
Right.
And the other one I had was Brady and the Rams. Brady Bucks against the Rams.
Yeah.
That would be 2 for me. That was a big-time hyped-up game. This one's 3.
That one was on my list. I actually put this game over that one, but that one was very close to me. It's a good list, Mike. I like it. All right, my number one divisional round game, storylines-wise, heading into the game over the last 10 years, is one that you actually did not mention. I thought you mentioned it, but you mentioned the wrong year. It's 2016 Packers at Cowboys. The run-the-table year for the Packers, where they were 4-6, and Aaron Rodgers said they're going to run the table, and that's exactly what they did. They won 6 straight. Then they played your Giants in the wild card round. They beat them. They went on to play the number 1 seed Dallas Cowboys with the shock of Dak Prescott, a mid-round pick rookie, going 13-3 in his rookie year alongside another rookie in Ezekiel Elliott. Just iconic matchup, Hall of Fame quarterback and Aaron Rodgers, 2 historic organizations, historic performance to run the table that year. Insanity that a rookie was the 1 seed, just an absolutely nuts storyline. And that's just going into the game. It ended up being a phenomenal playoff game that the Packers ultimately won. Then number 2, I have the one that you were just talking about. Everybody knows that classic, but the storylines going in were also great. Bills at Chiefs 2021, the notorious Gabe Davis 4-touchdown game that stat line gets a bit forgotten because they lost the game. And then number 3, this weekend, Ravens at Bills.
I was going to put that Cowboys game on. I remember being real pumped for that one as well. I do remember as a younger kid really excited for the Cowboys-Packers game, though, the one in Green Bay, because I wanted Dallas to lose. I hated Tony Romo, things like that. Yeah. I remember I love reminiscing on things like this. But same feel, that same kind of feel this weekend. Like, oh, this is going to be historic. And again, I think it's the pressure. Like, I almost feel bad for both quarterbacks because they've had such great seasons.
Exactly.
And, whoever you think should be MVP, I think it should be Lamar. But, Lamar might not even win MVP. And if he loses this game, it's like a double whammy, you know? Because I think the betting odds still say that
Allen's the favorite.
I've heard otherwise, but I think I'm right.
You don't see, I think you are right. You don't see quarterback matchups like this in the divisional round. You really don't see it. You see this in AFC, NFC championship games, and you see it in the Super Bowl. You don't see 2 of the top 2 MVP candidates meeting each other in the divisional round. And not only 2 of the top 2 MVP candidates, but guys who are having, like, they had notoriously, like, historic great seasons. Like, you put either of those stat lines in the past couple of years, they're probably also the MVP.
You know what I also didn't have it ahead, but I had this on the list of games I considered. That Bills-Bengals game in the snow.
Yeah.
Bengals coming off the run to the Super Bowl.
Yep.
Allen's the 1 seed at home. I had that one on there as well. Bengals ended up beating the doors off of the Bills that day. Lost a lot of money on that one. That was a big one, too. That was because a big one. I think anything with these 4 quarterbacks in the AFC, and I think we're going to be blessed and treated to games like this. When you have, usually it was just Brady Manning, right? Yep. And a little bit of Roethlisberger, and maybe a little bit of Rivers. But in the AFC, like, we had those historic matchups, and we're thinking, oh, AFC championship game, because there's really only 2 historically great quarterbacks. In the AFC, like, sure, Mahomes, in my opinion, and you will probably disagree with this, is my Brady in this scenario, but
I don't disagree with that. Yeah.
Okay, so the top guy.
Yeah.
But you have a Manning, and then another Manning, and then, like, a Roethlisberger. Like, there's more opportunities for these historic matchups, like you mentioned. You see these in usually the championship games. You have more opportunities because of how many great quarterbacks there are specifically in the AFC.
Oh, 100%. I mean, the quarterback play, we're going to talk a little bit later about quarterbacks in the NFL and the top ones in the league. The top 4 are all in the AFC.
Yeah.
Like, it's not debatable.
Yeah.
The top 4 are in the AFC.
4 guys.
Yeah.
AFC.
Yeah. Now, finally, we thought last year was like, holy crap, another one, C.J. Stroud, and then, the year before, another one, Trevor Lawrence. Stroud, I think, is still going to end up being a good quarterback, but finally, the NFC is seeing a young quarterback, obviously, in Jayden Daniels. That's emerging to the 2 looks like maybe the next best thing. Before we stop talking about this game and move on, we were talking about the MVP, and I know a topic we're going to talk about is who's under more pressure between Lamar and Allen, and we sprinkled with it a little bit before. To me, I think the answer is clearly Josh Allen. Like, we were talking broadly last week of, okay, who's under the most pressure to win the Super Bowl, right? Now that we're in the week where they're matched up against each other and the stake of the games and the where the game is and everything like that, I think it is so clearly Josh Allen has more pressure to win this game.
I still don't think so.
How? So they're the home team, first of all, which is a big thing, right? Like, you're playing in Buffalo. Josh Allen cannot afford to lose on his home field. And then we're talking about the MVP race. Josh Allen, standard numbers wise, like, just look at the stats. He's not the MVP, right?
Yeah.
Lamar has better numbers than him this season. But the argument is Bills had a better year. Josh Allen, people want to say he has a little less around him and stats don't tell the whole story and whatever else.
Actually, I don't think that's true anymore.
And neither do I. If he truly is the MVP and he's going to justify what everybody has been saying, that he's better than Lamar and the stats don't tell the whole story, this and that, then he damn well better beat this guy on his home field if that's true.
Yeah, I think we go back to this with the Ravens and more so Lamar. Like, he hasn't had the success in the postseason. Like, neither has Allen. He hasn't even reached the Super Bowl. And I think they're like, if it's funny, I think in this game it's Lamar. And then, but if they advance, I think it's the Bills and Allen. You know what I mean? Like, I think the Bills have been here so many times now. The Ravens have been in these games, but not as much as the Bills have. The
Bills have been closer to, like, they've been knocking on the door more, you're saying.
Yes, than the Ravens have. Yeah. So in this game, like, it sounds weird, but it's like, yeah, the Bills have to win it, and of course there's pressure. But I feel like
I understand. Sorry, I'm
beating the Chiefs,
but I understand the point you're trying to make is right. The Ravens, because they haven't been knocking on the door nearly as much as the Bills have been, it's like, well, you got to at least get to that point where you're knocking on the door so much. You haven't even been able to get to that stage.
Yeah.
But the Bills, it's like, all right, we expect you to be here. You've been here before. We're talking about now if they win, they advance next week. Now get it done, because you haven't been able to get it done multiple times against the same team. I get that. I still disagree, though. In terms of the game itself,
team-wise,
Josh Allen has more pressure to win this game than Lamar Jackson does.
Team-wise, organizational-wise, head coaching-wise, I agree it's the Bills.
Yeah.
Quarterback play, I still think Lamar is a first-ballot Hall of Famer right now. He doesn't have that postseason, the numbers, the success.
No.
You need to see it. You need to see it from him in this game. You do. It's going to be fascinating.
And it happens. It's not like these guys just go their entire career. It could happen. These guys can go their entire career and just be choke artists. But it's just 1 year where, boom.
One game is going to define so much for both of these teams, and more specifically these players, for a very long time. Mm-hmm. And they're not going to have a chance to redeem themselves for a full year. And they might not even get a chance to redeem themselves.
For the sake of football conversation and the love of the game, I want Lamar to win this game, whatever. But for the sake of the game, can just one of these guys make it to the Super Bowl? I don't care which one.
You'll root for the winner in the AFC Championship?
I will 100%.
No matter what.
If
it's Buffalo, you root for Allen.
If it's Buffalo, I don't care if they're in the AFC East. As a Jet fan, I will root for Buffalo.
Really?
I want to see a refreshing face in the Super Bowl. And then I'll root for them to get their doors beat off by the Lions or whoever it is.
I like going against the grain. I want the Chiefs to get back. I also have money on the Chiefs.
They're bizarre.
That's kind of why. No, I'll root for Buffalo. I'll root for Buffalo in the game.
Okay. Yeah, how could you not? It's your boyfriend.
He's my guy.
Yeah.
He's so good.
Yeah.
Big game this week from him. I think they win the game close. It's really tough to handicap. I actually think the Bills have more weapons than people give them credit for. And Cook, obviously, is not Derrick Henry, but has played so well.
He really
Cook has been great.
He's gone from a guy who's had the reputation of, okay, he's a good player, but he just doesn't score touchdowns, to leading the NFL in rushing touchdowns.
They both have really good running backs, good offensive lines, even-ish weapons.
Throw out the week 3 or 4, whatever it was, that result. Yeah. Throw that out. Really, just throw it out. That has nothing to do with this game.
We've thrown it out. Yeah. The Commanders beat the Bucs, and the Commanders are going to play the Lions.
They are.
That was a tight game, man. That was a great game. The thing about Daniels is what makes him so special is how, like, late in the game, he's like a 10-year vet.
Yeah.
Nothing phases him. Whether he's running the ball, whether he's throwing the ball down the field, he knows exactly what play he has to make, and he does it. He is, as scary as it gets for, a player you're viewing as an opponent for other teams. I mean, How do you stop this guy? You can't.
You really can't. The escapability of this guy, like, it really is true. I know Lamar is just in a league of his own when it comes to the way that he plays the game. But if there's a guy that plays similarly to Lamar, it's Jayden Daniels. The way the athleticism just gets put into the game, and the fact that he could at any point make a quick cut and go up the field and gash you for 15, 20 yards, or just the way he extends plays. Lamar extends plays in a way that we've never seen before, and now Daniels is doing it in a similar way. Yeah, you see guys in the likes of Aaron Rodgers in his prime and Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, where they'll scramble out and extend the play and look downfield and finally throw it. But the way that Daniels and Lamar can just, they're so quick that they could literally just stand there, and there's a defensive lineman now that they could run towards them, and then boom, one little cut, they still got time, and they just look so calm and poised. This kid's going to be a problem for a long time, and as Washington Commanders fans, I mean, they should be, thanking the heavens for this absolute godsend to their organization, a team that's been in the dark for so long. They're going to be competitors for a long time just because of this guy.
The Ravens got Lamar. I think Lamar is the easy comparison for him, and it's a great comparison. I mean, they play similarly. Lamar is a Hall of Fame player, but when Lamar got there, it wasn't this instant, oh my God, this guy's going to be a godsend for your organization. It took time, and it took a lot of building and putting the right pieces around Lamar until we saw him really shine into the superstar that he is. It took a couple years. I'm trying to think of another player. What?
It literally took a year.
A year. Okay, a year.
Yeah. But you're right. But his rookie season, he wasn't ready to play yet. That playoff game, he played pretty poorly. Yeah.
It wasn't instant, oh my God, like we see here.
Right.
And it was kind of like that with C.J. Stroud and the Texans, and C.J. had a tough year, and they still won a playoff game, but it wasn't the year that they had hoped. I'm trying to think of another player that is similar to what Daniels has done. I mean, Luck, RG3, Dak, Shore,
Cam Newton, his rookie season. I mean,
some of the you look at the numbers and compare them to those great rookie seasons, and Daniels is better, or if not top 2 or 3 amongst those rankings.
It's funny. We got a little spoiled to it because of what Stroud did last year. Like, we were talking about what an iconic rookie season it's not. Jayden Daniels had a better season than C.J. Stroud did.
Yeah.
I mean, the passing numbers, he threw more touchdowns. His passer rating was, I think, 1 point lower, not even a decimal point lower than C.J. Stroud's was. And then you count all the rushing stats in it. It's like he blows them out of the water.
It's freaky because I remember even saying, saying early, pump the brakes. It's not going to, you're not going to see another performance like this. Stroud was kind of once every 5-10 years. Yeah. But no, it ended up being true. I remember saying that early in the year.
And it's funny when you think about that. It's like, all right, well, how is it a coincidence that that's happening? Is it, the college and the NFL level are now closer than we think. The play styles are getting more and more similar. Obviously, we know that Cliff Kingsbury, they were saying in the beginning of the year, this Commanders offense is sort of like a college-style offense. But if a college-style offense works in the NFL, then it's also an NFL-style offense. You know what I mean?
I don't think it's overrated, and we've kind of seen this throughout, the past few years now. A lot of guys have stayed in college a little longer, and they've played so many years. And, Bo Nix is an older guy, but he played so many games in college. And look, instant success. Daniels played 3 full seasons, in 2 different spots. That helps Burrow. How long did he, Burrow was in college a while. Burrow was an older guy. And that's why the age thing with quarterbacks to me, all right, you want guys in their prime, sure, but 26 to 24, Penix, same thing. Would it shock me if Penix next season had a great year?
Right.
Penix has played so many games in college.
Especially a guy like Jayden Daniels. I mean, all that experience in the SEC. I mean, that you're playing in the NFL light over there. I mean, you got teams over there that get 10 guys in one draft class selected to an NFL team.
And Jayden Daniels, I'm not saying Jayden Daniels is an older guy. He's not. I'm trying to look up his age. He's not. But he just had so much. He's 24.
That's old for a rookie. It is.
He had so many games under his belt before we even got to the NFL. I think that's the common denominator between seeing, the instant success with some of these rookies.
Yeah.
And I think it was perfect spot with Stroud. I think Stroud played, 2 full seasons with Ohio State?
Yep, I believe so.
It wasn't crazy. It wasn't a crazy amount. Where does he rank among quarterbacks right now? I tried to do it before, and I had a crazy number in my head, Daniels, where he was.
Yeah, I did too, and I do still.
And it doesn't feel right to say it.
But do it. You did exactly what I did. You looked up, you looked at all the numbers, looked at the kind of seasons guys had, and now you're like, all right, why do I feel like there's a couple names missing? And then I was looking around the league, and I'm like, no, there's not really names missing. There's concrete, set in place top 4 quarterbacks in the league. And then from that point down, Herbert's been up and down the past couple seasons. Jalen Hurts been up and down the past couple seasons. who knows? Matt Stafford, okay, he's a very good quarterback, but the numbers don't back it up to put him very, very high this past season. Are we really going to sit here and say Jared Goff is a top guy in the league? Right. I have Jayden Daniels right now the 5th best quarterback in the NFL.
It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right, but I think, yeah.
Give me a name. Like, I'm not saying, like, just anybody that's out there listening right now and they're saying that it sounded crazy to me when I first did it, but go out there, look at the names in the league, and give me a name of who should be over Jayden Daniels at that number 5 spot. Great. Mike just pulled it up on his computer. Baker Mayfield.
He's had 2 really good seasons.
I'm taking Jayden Daniels. I obviously, I could give you the very shallow answer and say who just won the matchup between the two of them. Right. That's not exactly the best argument to make in the world. But what I would say is go back, watch that game, and tell me which quarterback you'd rather have on your roster.
No, it's Daniels.
It's Daniels.
The only 2 guys like I would consider because of the success they had the past 2 seasons, or really Stroud last year and then Love. But I'm still taking Daniels over those 2 guys.
I was going to say Herbert. I'll accept being thrown in the conversation. I mean, the guy had 23 touchdowns and 3 interceptions this year.
I'm a big Herbert guy.
Yeah.
I don't think I can do it though.
No, especially after that stinker he put up the other day.
Yeah, I can't do it. Yeah, I guess he's 5 right now.
I'm not Love either.
No, Love. We're gonna talk about Love. I have some interesting points on Love. So the only 4 guys is Mahomes, Jackson, Burrow, Allen, and then Daniels right now.
That's what I would.
It's freaky, but yeah, it's weird.
Honestly, if we could tier it. Tier 1 is Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, Lamar.
Yeah.
Tier 2 would be Jayden Daniels and a couple of those guys we just mentioned. Your C.J. Strouds, your
Herbert.
Justin Herberts, those guys.
You want to put Love in there?
I might put Love in tier 3 at this point.
Wow. Stafford tier 2. Yeah. Tier 2 guy Stafford.
Because honestly, really quick, we'll talk about Love, and honestly, no, we could feed right into this Packers.
We're going right into a Packers-Eagles right now.
Okay. So with Love, we've seen 2 years of Jordan Love now, and let's remember that this guy's in his 5th year in the NFL. Okay, we're not talking about some 22-year-old rookie. Yes, he still is pretty young because he was young when he was drafted out of college, but he's got 5 years of NFL experience sitting behind Aaron Rodgers for 3 years, right? How can I, after this past season he's had with the turnover issues and the earlier in the year, and then putting it together a bit, and then watching that performance he put out, and it's not all his fault. Like, we know the Eagles, they were overmatched, the Packers, and we know that, the receivers got hurt. He had 3 different receivers go down, going back to Watson with the ACL. But, I mean, I still see some problems with Jordan Love that I would not like to see out of a guy that's making the money that he's making at the point he is in his career.
You know what the problem is with Jordan Love? Yes, I understand he's been in the league for a while, but we all know he's only played now 2 full seasons he's played. The problem with Love is that he was paid, and I'm not going to say it was the wrong decision or, the right decision, but he was paid off of an elite half of a season, right? Terrible in the first half last year, really great in the second half.
And a great playoffs.
And was paid off of that. Where it's unfair for him was that he never really had the time or the ability to, Stroud had a great first year and a bad second year. Right? And for his standards, for what we believe he's going to be, bad second year. And they're really good 2 quarterbacks to compare.
Yeah.
Stroud can go out next season and be great. And we're not going to blink. We're not going to blink, right? Because he's in his 3rd year of playing.
Right.
And sophomore slump, young kid, guys were injured, great. And then he's going to be able to get paid off of that. Love has been in the league, had an interesting contract situation, had to get paid right away, right? That the contract ran out. He needed to get a contract. And the Packers are sitting there like, this is our guy. We invested so much in him, so much time and draft capital. We have to pay him. He doesn't have the ability to grow in his second year because there's already the pressure of a big contract on his head. So he was bad at times this year, and he's been overrated a little bit for sure. But I think he's going to be fine he needed a year to grow, and they got to improve this wide receiver core because this is not
Oh,
happening.
that's easy.
This is not.
Yes.
Them thinking they could just draft these kids and they're wizards. No, you got to go pay somebody.
No, 100%. You do have to pay someone. And yeah, great point. Like the patience with this guy, the timetable for him, everything is sort of shrunk because, like you said, it's a much different situation, contract situation, everything. Now, okay, hey, instead of 4 years to prove yourself to get an extension, 1 year, has a great year, they give him that extension. Now all of a sudden it's, okay, that was really fast. You better perform to that. And the minute he doesn't, it's boom, overrated. You're right. Totally. There's overreactions going on all over the place because of the timing of how everything went with him. And yeah, that receiver room, I mean, it's nice to have a lot of different receivers who can be solid, right? Like they have very good depth, the Packers. That's cool. But it's like in baseball, it's like having a bunch of like seventh inning relievers, and then it comes time to put a dominant closer out there, and you have nobody, and then you blow a save and you lose. You don't make it to the World Series.
They don't have the resemblance of a number one wide receiver.
Not at all. Romeo Doubs is a good receiver. He is not a number one. Okay, you cannot be having that guy lining up as the X. I think he's a 2.
Low end 2? High end 2?
Mid tier 2.
Okay.
I would say if they put another good guy next to him, I think he could be around a top 40 receiver in the league.
What's Watson? What's Watson at this point?
Watson is, he adds that nice aspect to your offense, right? He's got the speed. He's got the way that he stretches the field. He's not a guy that could run a full route tree, 9 different routes, right? When the 9 different major routes that are on the route tree, he can't do that. So you got to go out, and why shouldn't the Packers be mixed in the T. Higgins sweepstakes? Or why shouldn't the Packers be talked about as looking to trade up in the draft and go get a top receiver or draft a receiver? Like, is Jordan Love, is this going to be Aaron Rodgers all over again? Are they just going to go and not draft top receivers?
They should draft a receiver, but, like, I don't know if I would do it at the top.
Right, I don't know if I would do it.
I'd go get a veteran. I'd go get a veteran guy. That's what I would do.
The Packers wouldn't be the team to go do that. How about this?
Reunion. Yeah.
Bring back Devontae Adams.
Why not?
That makes a ton of sense, actually.
I saw him on Kay Adams today.
Yep.
That makes sense.
And he already hinted at it a little bit, but he's going to say, they'll say any team. It'll be like, yeah, sure. Yeah.
This game was over on the first play. The Eagles-Packers game was over on the first play. That was easy.
And it's been the same issues that have plagued the Packers for years now. Their special teams has just been awful. I mean, you think about some of the biggest moments in the Packers, or the worst moments in Packers, franchise history. It's or playoff history, I should say. It's obviously the Brandon Bostic.
Yep.
Fumbled onside kick is the biggest one that stands out.
Sure.
I'm drawing a blank right now, but I know they've had some other bad special teams blunders over the year.
The blocked punt against the 49ers at home in the snow, and the missed field goal, I think.
Yep.
It's been bad.
They've had some bad instances.
I never expected the Packers to even be in this game, and we finally get a Packers wild card game right. We both agreed that the Eagles would take care of business, as we did last year when they beat the piss out of the Cowboys, and we were wrong. And, of course, not the same level of traction on that post.
Right, yeah. No 1,900 comments.
Somebody told me to go through and just at the people after the game, like, how we doing? Something like that. That would have been funny. I never expected them to be in this game at all. And the Eagles did not play well in the game. The Eagles were poor on offense. Defensively, this team is remarkable. And they showed that on Sunday night.
They did. The defense is top notch. Nakobe Dean going down does suck for them.
Yep.
That is a blow to their defense for sure.
He became a good player for them this year.
But that defensive line was disruptive. Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis are just freaking Nolan Smith. They're just disruptive. A lot of batted passes too. Mm-hmm. Something that you always like to see out of defensive linemen. And this defense, I mean, they bend. They do not break. I mean, they will. They when you'll gash them for a quick little gain, they'll come right back at you and punch you in the mouth.
What about Hurts? Not Hurts. We'll talk about Hurts in a second. How about A.J. Brown reading the book on the sideline?
Yeah, crazy.
Interesting. See, that book was ranked like 500,000th on Amazon, and it was first within a day.
Yeah, it's up in sales like a crazy amount. That guy should be naming his first kid AJ for AJ Brown, the author of that book.
He's such a weird cat, man.
He is.
He's such a good player, though. Shut down, though, in the game. They had really no passing game. Saquon, the defense, carries them to a win here. But that's not going to be able to happen in this game. We'll talk about that in 1 second against the Rams. Sirianni. Opinion change on Sirianni at all the last couple of weeks?
I mean, my opinion has always been a little lighter on Sirianni than yours has, obviously.
Mine's changed.
The guy, we say it, like, all he does is win. As much as criticism we give him, and, maybe we're not used to some of the antics he has out of a head coach, but he gets the job done, and you got to give the guy credit.
It's such a weird place. Philadelphia and this organization, it's so weird. It's so different because the antics that do go on the sideline and Big Dom and all these other things that happen in Philadelphia, they don't work anywhere else. And
you almost need to have it.
With Sirianni, he just, I guess, embraces the chaos. And, maybe it didn't work out last season because he was almost too involved. But now that he's got a hands-off approach, he's got great coordinators, it's working again. Yeah. Like it worked back in 2022 when he had Steichen and what's the guy's name? Gannon, who got the job at the Cardinals. Yeah. So it works. This is working right now. So I think he's just a good fit for what this exact organization needs.
He is 100%. And you got to be unfortunately or fortunately, depending on if the Philadelphia fans like it, their organization and their fan base have a certain stigma around them that they're a-holes. And Nick Sirianni plays into that as the head coach, and he's sort of an identity for that team. And the Eagles are, they're like trying to be the evil empire, and it's working for them.
They're tough.
But this spot, a big trend as a bettor that I love is team coming off a bad week against a team coming off a good week, right? And that is exactly what this is, because you might be like, team coming off a bad week. The Eagles won by multiple possessions. Packers were never really in that game. If the Eagles played well last week, they would have won that game by 3+ touchdowns.
And it looked like that.
It felt like that.
Right after they scored that first touchdown, you're like, oh, this is going to be bad.
Yeah. They should have pulled away from that game 100%. Now, was that the Packers just played them tough? I don't really think so. I think the Eagles were more making mistakes on their own half. And I think that Jalen Hurts being concussed for 3 weeks and possibly not being 100% there last week, who knows, right? We never know what goes on behind closed doors with the protocols, but I don't want to get into that.
Yeah.
I think another week under Jalen Hurts' belt and this offense getting in sync this week against this Rams team is likely. We know what happened when the Rams played the Eagles on the Rams field earlier in the year when Saquon Barkley, that was like his signature Eagles moment.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think that this is going to be a bad spot for the Rams.
It's a really good spot for the Eagles. You mentioned it with Hurts. He hasn't played in a while. And I think I said this last week when I gave the prediction that the Eagles were going to smoke the Packers. I was like, it's not going to shock me if they start out slow offensively. It's going to be the defense that carries them in this one. And Hurts hasn't played in a few weeks. He's coming off the concussion. I think now against this Rams team, he'll be ready to go. He'll be set to go.
Yeah.
And the weather, there's supposed to be some weather involved. We know it's going to be cold. I think there's snow in the forecast now. That's not good for the team traveling outside from the West Coast. Team that's playing indoors. The last time they played in any sort of wet weather was that Jet game, and they played terribly, the Rams, in that Jet game. They still won, but they played terrible in that game. I don't know. I like this spot for the Eagles because when you look at the strength of the Rams right now, it's their defensive line. Out of anything, it's that defensive line getting pressure. Going up against probably the best offensive line, if not the second best offensive line in football.
Yeah.
They're going to be just fine. They're going to be ready to go in this one.
Yeah, and we were, I was talking about the game plan that the Rams had against the Vikings last week, and it was, they shut down the run. They were getting the Vikings in obvious passing situations. They were sending the house, and Sam Darnold was struggling and holding on to the ball too long and all that stuff. Number one, I think that the Vikings have a good offensive line. The Eagles' offensive line is better. And number two, the rushing attack of the Vikings is nowhere in the same ballpark of the rushing attack of the Philadelphia Eagles. They are not going to shut down the Eagles' running game. And if they somehow do that, that's going to mean the passing game is going to be wide open. So I think the Rams are going to not be able to get as many hits on the quarterback as they did last week. They're going to have to play a little bit more of conservative defense because you really have to respect the run and the pass with this Eagles offense. It's not as the Vikings was, where you're not really too concerned about the run. You just don't want to get gashed by Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. I don't think, like you said, all those factors, the weather, this and that, and coming off the performance they had last week, it's really hard to replicate that. You're going into a hostile environment, and you're just overmatched in basically every aspect of the field. I don't like the Rams' chances.
And you want to come after Hurts, you want to blitz him, that's fine. He's completing 66% of his passes, 9 touchdowns, 1 pick, a passer rating of 115. When you blitz him,
it's pretty good.
And he can run. He can move. So unlike Darnold, who's going to hold the ball too long and go backwards, Hurts is going to try and make some plays and escape a little bit with his feet. I'm not the biggest Hurts guy, but it's going to be a fine matchup for them. In this, and the opposite, you get to Stafford, which they will. Stafford's a statue back there. So There we go with that matchup. All right, JM. As we move on here, we dwindle down the last matchup we're going to talk about, potential the pass matchup, because we're running late. We're already at an hour here. The Texans beat the Chargers. This was kind of shocking, I think, in the way they did it. They'll play the Chiefs. Talking about the Chiefs. Chiefs haven't played since Christmas Day. They're ones. Yeah. That's crazy. We'll talk about that in a minute. The Texans take down the Chargers, though. It's funny. When we recorded the pod, I was on the Chargers. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm going to bet the Chargers. And I ended up switching. I bet the Texans because of other reasons. Wow, was I shocked. I mean, you were texting me. You asked me, who I was on and what I did. I told you I bet the Texans, and it looked like this was going to be a blowout, and you texted me incoming belt to ass.
Yep.
And it looked like it. I'm like, yeah, this is what's going to happen.
It totally looked like it. The Chargers had multiple opportunities to score touchdowns earlier in the game. They could not get it done. That first drive, it looked like they were just going to waltz right into the end zone, and ultimately the Texans got a big stop, had to force them a field goal, and they just could not capitalize on any opportunities. That C.J. Stroud interception, that was one of the worst interceptions that I've seen in a playoff game in a little while.
Yeah, that was
really he
bad.
Just floated it to the left side, and it looked like he was throwing it away, and it just went right into a defender's hands. And the next play, Justin Herbert gives them the ball right back, targeting Quentin Johnston 40 yards across his body into double coverage. I don't know what the hell the guy was thinking. Yeah, the Texans, give them credit, though. They played a good game. Their defense played well. Their young stars really shine. Will Anderson and Derek Stingley had some really nice games. And now they're in Kansas City. And it's a matchup that we've seen, an underrated rivalry here.
Yeah.
Maybe a little one-sided with the Chiefs usually winning, but this is a matchup we've seen a couple of times. We saw it in the regular season this year. We saw it a couple years ago when Watson was there, and the Texans jumped out to that 24-0 lead, and we're like, uh-oh, holy crap, is this really about to happen? Chiefs ended up outscoring them 51-7 from that point on.
Yep, 51-31 win.
But this is a familiar matchup, and while I think nobody's sitting here and is going to confidently look at anyone and say the Texans are going to win this game, knowing the way that the Chiefs have played all year and knowing how their matchup went earlier in the season in early December, I think this should be a pretty close game, though.
This could be a good game. I think a lot of people are going to be on the Texans, which is why I'll go on the other side, and I'll just take the Chiefs the spread. But the Chiefs, I mean, how can you not have this in your head that they haven't played since Christmas Day? I mean, it's 3 weeks. That's a long time to not play. So they're going to play this game, January 17th?
If it were another team, I would be concerned about it. But the playoff experience that this team has, they do this every year.
You're not worried.
They always have a bye, or they've won the Super Bowl 2 times, 3 times in the past 4 years, whatever it is. Yeah, I'm not worried about them not playing. They could have not played for 3 months, and I would still be feeling pretty good about them.
Yeah, I guess Reed will have his guys on offense ready to go.
Maybe slow start to the game.
Definitely could be a slow start. I'll tell you what, I was not familiar with that Texans defense. I was not familiar with how, they got guys, Anderson, we know is he's gonna be an All-Pro player. I mean, he's that good. Yeah. Stingley is, if he's not already an All-Pro player, going to be one as well. Like, I knew going in, they had really good impact defensive players at the most important positions. I didn't know they were that good. Yeah. And give D'Amico Ryans some credit here. That's 2 straight years, 2 playoff wins.
Yeah.
Same thing with Stroud on teams that nobody really thought. Everybody thought the Browns were going to win that game last year. And the Texans beat them because of how great the Browns are playing coming in. Yep. And this time, again,
same thing.
Underdogs, Chargers, Harbaugh, Herbert, nothing. Yep. So give them credit, give that defense credit. D'Amico Ryans, and I think completely changed the way we view the Texans right now. Because the way I view the Texans right now is, okay, when times get tough and they need to figure it out, they pull together. Mm-hmm. They're going to win games. And Stroud ended up playing a really good game after that fumbled snap that he rolled out to the right, changed their season.
That was crazy.
I trust him. I completely trust him.
I totally forgot about that play. That play was that was a game changer.
Save the season.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still don't think the Texans have any shot, though. They're not going to win this game.
No.
Not going to win this game. So we could clip that and we'll be good to go.
Yeah, sure. If clip it up, please. If the Texans do win that game, I don't want to see one person criticizing that. Who in their right mind is looking at a camera on whatever show, podcast they're on and saying the Texans are going to win this game? Without being called an absolute lunatic, delusional, la-la land person.
By the way, so the way the Rams played last week, if the Rams were going to Detroit, would you have any
I would have Detroit, once again, minus.
You had any worry about that, by the way?
At least 13.5.
That's crazy. Tell everybody what you did with the Charger game. How you bet the Charger game.
The Charger game, I don't know, bro. Okay, you know what? From now on, I'll bring up your bad bets, too. But the Charger game, I had the Chargers minus 9.5.
He said
and the team total over.
He said
both didn't hit.
He said the bet, and I was like, "Yeah, what's this?" It's like, holy crap!
Yeah. The bet slips that this kid has sent me over the years that I've been like, "Yeah, bro, looks good," and then I'm like, "What the hell is this guy thinking right now?" Or I just straight up tell him this is awful.
Yeah.
I'll remember that, Mike.
That was interesting, though. Chargers minus the 9.5.
That was originally I was thinking like 6.5, and then I saw the odds they were giving me, and I got greedy, and I was like, you know what? That's not good enough. 9.5. 9.5 felt nice.
And I clicked on the bet, and I was like, it's only that much?
Yeah.
Like the odds, I'm like, that's crazy.
Talk about overconfident. If you flipped it. If you did Texans minus 9.5,
that would have been a great payout.
Would have hit very easily, and it would have been a great payout.
Yeah, been a great payout. All right, Mike, let's wrap up here with the coaches a little bit, what we know. A couple of things have changed, obviously, with McCarthy. But Vrabel hired by the Patriots. We kind of hit that in the beginning. I mean, I don't have anything else to say.
Yeah, right.
You know, great. It's going to be a really good hire, and congratulations to them. That's really it. But McCarthy's out with the Cowboys. They part ways. I think this is a mistake. I really do. You had something good going. You had a really solid coach there with Mike McCarthy, and now you got to go through this whole circus of finding the next Dallas Cowboys head coach. I don't know. It's not a desirable job. It's really not.
It's not. There's the risk reward is just it's not worth it. You know, it doesn't matter now because he's not the coach of the team anymore. But Dak Prescott getting hurt is the best thing that could have happened to Mike McCarthy. What he did with that team with Cooper Rush in the second half of the season was remarkable. I mean, we thought when Dak went down, the way they were performing, and now without him, thought this team would have been picking in the top 8, top 7 in the NFL draft this year.
Yeah.
And, I mean, they were not eliminated from playoff contention until the last couple weeks of the season. So I think McCarthy, he's going to get hired in this cycle. If he doesn't get hired in this cycle, he's going to get hired in next year's coaching cycle and maybe have it a Mike Vrabel path. But you're right. Why would anybody want to come to the Dallas Cowboys right now?
Paying a quarterback way too much money. And he's good, but best seasons under Mike McCarthy, by the way, when he was calling plays. I just don't, again, like we talk about the pressure that's going to be on you, dealing with the front office with Jerry and his son.
Dealing with the media.
McCarthy was okay with that. You know, McCarthy's a good coach. He's not looking for that ultimate power like Belichick would be if he came in. McCarthy was okay with being the coach and calling plays and doing what he did. Like, I don't know. If you have a good situation, why ruin it?
Yeah, and McCarthy, he wore it. If anything went wrong,
he really did.
It all went on him, and he was okay with it. And I mean, he's been around the game forever, and I think the personality he has, he doesn't really care about that. I think he had a very good relationship with Jerry Jones, and as much criticism as Jerry Jones gets, as we give Jerry Jones, he does have a nice way of backing his head coaches up.
He does.
I think he has a pretty solid relationship with his head coaches. Now that he's gone, McCarthy, why would a coach want to come into a situation where this team has been underachieving for a couple of years now? And I know that sort of contradicts what we were saying about McCarthy. McCarthy did just about, there were some shortcomings there, but winning 13 games, or 12 games, 3 years in a row or something like that.
Yeah.
That's pretty remarkable for what he did. But going back to why it's an undesirable spot, America's team, the media attention, the pressure on this team, the pressure from the fan base, the pressure from the owner. Jerry Jones is not a young man, and he's very outspoken. He's the most outspoken owner in the sport. I think only one person knows what that's like and likes the spotlight and knows how to handle that. And obviously, it's a guy who played for them and is a legend, Deion Sanders.
I'm praying.
I know as a Giants fan, you're praying for it. As a football fan, I am also praying for it. I love it. I think it will be great no matter which way it goes.
It could be catastrophic or it could be amazing, and there's really no in between.
Yep.
No,
but
I won't
how
happen.
often, it's not very often, do we see an ex-player or an ex-coach stepping into a different role in the sport and them not succeeding at it? Like a Phil Jackson, right? Great coach, awful GM. Some great players out there become coaches. They're terrible at it.
Yeah. I mean, we're seeing Deion right now, though, in college. I think he's doing a good job.
College.
I don't know how he would translate. I never thought he would translate well, but I also never thought he would succeed at Colorado, and they were better than I ever thought they would be. So I don't know. He's proven me wrong.
College is college, though. Just for the name itself, I'm not. He's also done some nice things as coach, but the recruiting he's been able to do just because of his name has been pretty nice.
You're not gonna be able to do that.
You're not gonna be able to do it in the NFL.
And I just think the difference between coaching kids and men, is different.
Yep.
I know it's gonna be fascinating. I think McCarthy's the perfect spot for Chicago because I think Chicago right now, their issue is they need an offensive guy that's going to fix Caleb, but they also need a leader and a culture builder. And I think McCarthy kind of fills both. He's an experienced head coach that knows exactly how to run successful franchises, and he's an offensive guy that calls plays and just had success with Dak. He's had success, obviously, with Rodgers in his career and Favre at the end of his. So
familiar with the division.
Very familiar with the division, owns the franchise, basically. So I think Chicago. It's a home run for Chicago, by the way, too. I don't think it's. I've seen Bears fans saying, "Oh, is it a retread? This and that." Like, I think it's perfect, especially for right now. Even if it's a 4 or 5 year thing, and then McCarthy's done after that. Yeah, it's perfect for the development right now of Caleb.
And honestly, when we're thinking about these head coaches, is Mike McCarthy a slam dunk? Oh my God, this guy just by himself is just a phenomenal coach. He's going to be able to fix everything. No. But what you do know is because of the success that he had in Green Bay, if he's paired with a GM and you put a good personnel in front of him, he'll be able to make it work and put a winning product out there. Mm-hmm. He's proven it before.
Yeah.
And obviously the league changes, but these guys change with the league as well. These coaches, they know the sport, they know football. Mike McCarthy proves he'll have respect to that locker room. He's an experienced guy, and you're right. That organization needs a leader, and they need it desperately. Matt Nagy, Matt Eberflus, these guys, they're not leaders.
Let's talk about Ben Johnson for a minute. So Ben Johnson was a hot name last season when he was going to be hired by. It looked like he was going to be hired by the Commanders. Now that was going to be their guy. Him and Peters, Adam Peters, a GM. Apparently, this is from Lake Lewis Jr., okay? He works for, he's Commander's Insider, TV analyst, okay? So I don't know really exactly who he works for, but I guess trust. He was on this podcast, and he had heard that Ben Johnson wanted former Commanders quarterback Sam Howell to be the team's quarterback, which Adam Peters told Johnson that he was going to draft a quarterback. And then Peters decided to nix the whole interview, and that was it. I mean, if this is true, we've heard some things kind of like, oh, Ben Johnson might be a weirdo, might be this, might be that. Don't know how he's going to be as a leader and as a head coach. This is fascinating, man. This is absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, it is fascinating. And honestly, Ben Johnson, he's a very good offensive mind of what we know. But don't you just get the feeling that something with Detroit, like one of these guys is going to get exposed of not being as good as we thought they were between Dan Campbell, Aaron Glenn, and Ben Johnson, because they're all going to get extracted from each other this year.
Yeah.
They're all going to get separated. So at least one of them, you got to feel is like, yeah, that's not going to work out.
And I feel really good about Glenn.
Yeah.
And you love Campbell.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Who knows? Offensive mind, great, smart guy, right? Like, that's awesome. But, like, being a head coach is a completely different story.
I think spot also matters. I mean, we
Spot,
mentioned Jaguars last week. I think that's a good spot for him. Yeah. Chicago, I think he'd fall on his face.
So do I.
And the Bears fans want him badly. They want him badly.
I would not go there if I was him.
No, I'd go McCarthy. And that's why the Bears fans are going to be upset.
Spot.
Yeah, I think Jacksonville's a good spot. Boy Saleh. Your boy Saleh might get a job here. I'll tell you that much. My boy Saleh.
Head coaching job?
Head coaching job.
Jacksonville or Dallas?
Could be.
Dallas would be crazy.
Imagine he's the coach of the Dallas Cowboys.
Nuts.
Listen, I have my issues with Bob Saleh. And I would have told you this before he started getting interviews. I think he'll be head coach again one day.
Sure. I think 49ers defensive coordinator is where he's most likely going. I think he's going home.
He's going home. Then he'll get a job, and then he'll get a job
elsewhere.
And
I think Ulbricht's going home too.
Ulbricht's going back there as well?
He's going back to Atlanta.
Oh, he's from Atlanta? I thought he was
from Atlanta, yep.
I love how they interviewed Ulbricht. That was fun. Yeah. For the job.
Yeah, just to entertain him.
They have to. It's like a respect thing.
So what do you say there? Like, hey, Jeff, so how are you going to coach this team? Like, we know you already did it, and it went bad.
I would almost, decline the interview.
Right.
If I was him...
I'm done. I'm wiped out. Save me the time.
If I was him, how does he walk into that interview as, I don't know. I don't want to sound mean, but, that it's not just out of respect. You know what I mean? Like, it's a pity interview. Yeah. Because you were the coach, and... You're not the head coach. You're the interim head coach. We have to interview you. Yeah. I wouldn't even go. I tell him screw it.
Yeah, screw off. Exactly. I'm done. I already cleaned out my office. Thanks, guys.
What a
good riddance, Woody.
All right, Mike.
Hop on Madden.
Wow. That's a lot in one episode. We're gonna have NFC and AFC championship games next week. I'm sure we'll have more head coaches hired by the next week. Thanks so much for listening, watching, wherever you are, liking and subscribing on YouTube, liking and rating us. I forgot to do this at the top on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We appreciate the support. Check out social media this week for some clips. And yeah, that's all I got, Jam. Anything about you?
That's all I got. Go Ravens.
All right. We'll talk to you guys next week.